Have you ever heard the story about the bathroom guardian? They say that willingly cleaning a bathroom, a task most people dread, not only cleanses your heart, but also purifies your spirit, bringing clarity, luck, and even financial blessings. Bringing joy to others while improving yourself? That's a truly wonderful thing, don't you think? My name is Maya Taylor. I've been married for just over 10 months, a blissful, starry-eyed newlywed. For a while, I believed the world existed just to make me happy. But lately, I've started to see life as a long, winding road, sometimes smooth, sometimes bumpy. The reason for this shift? My mother-in-law, Linda. There's no shortage of stories about in-law struggles, but I often wonder how the women who've been through it managed to cope. I don't have a playbook for dealing with a mother-in-law, and that leaves me feeling pretty overwhelmed. The fact that I'm starting to feel detached from my own life might be proof of just how cornered I feel. Growing up, my uncle, my father's older brother, and his wife treated me like their own daughter, likely because they didn't have children of their own. I remember one day they took me to this huge shopping mall. It was a big deal for a small-town girl like me. My birthday was coming up, and they promised to get me something special, so I was practically walking on air. The mall was massive, with endless rows of stores and crowds bustling about. It felt like a whole city under one roof. As I wandered around wide-eyed and curious, I noticed someone pushing a large cleaning cart. They were sweeping the floors and mopping as they moved along. I couldn't take my eyes off them, and my uncle noticed. He leaned down and said something I'd never forget. "See that? It's because of people like them that we can shop in a clean and pleasant place. Keeping things spotless is hard work, but they do it with so much care and dedication." His words struck me. I realized it must be tough to keep a place like this looking pristine. I knew I'd hate even looking at the mess, let alone touching it. That they did it as a job seemed incredible to me. I started looking around and noticed several people cleaning, quietly, diligently, and often unnoticed. It was the kind of work most people overlook, but suddenly I saw it everywhere, like magic happening behind the scenes. They weren't just cleaning restrooms. They were wiping down escalator railings, changing trash bags in the food court, sweeping up forgotten corners on the rooftop. Without them, the mall would probably be overrun with trash and filth in no time, making it impossible for anyone to enjoy their day. The phrase unsung heroes came to mind, and I was struck by just how much we owe to people doing their jobs so quietly and diligently. When I shared my thoughts, my aunt chimed in with a story of her own. Have you ever heard of the bathroom guardian? It's said that taking on the unpleasant task of cleaning a bathroom doesn't just clear the space, it cleanses your spirit, and even invites prosperity and good luck. Making others happy while bettering yourself? There's nothing quite like it. That day changed me. From then on, I couldn't help but notice the art and effort behind cleaning. I didn't just notice, it inspired me to clean more myself. Watching a space transform under my hands brought a sense of pride and accomplishment I'd never felt before. At home, I'd volunteer to clean, beaming when Mom praised me for it. At school, I threw myself into cleaning duties so intensely that my friends were shocked. It was such a simple truth. Cleaning makes things better, but the satisfaction of being the one to make it happen was indescribable. I soon discovered that cleaning wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. Every stain, every space required its own approach, its own solution. I started researching techniques, reading books, scoring the internet, and testing out methods. Every attempt taught me something new, and I refined my skills with every task. Though self-taught, the saying, "passion breeds mastery," rang true. My skills improved day by day. By the time I got to college, I wanted to learn more, so I majored in home economics and took a part-time job with a housekeeping service. It just so happened that my Uncle James ran the company. The man who'd opened my eyes to the world of cleaning had made it his life's work. Home economics was perfect. It covered everything from cooking to interior designing to cleaning. It gave me the chance to apply my skills and make new discoveries while earning a paycheck. I mostly took on cleaning assignments, and the senior staff I worked with often praised my techniques and attention to detail. I was earning money, making people happy, and honing my skills. It felt like a dream. And to me, this wasn't just a job. It felt like a calling. In college, I also studied nutrition and developed my cooking skills in hands-on classes. I learned about fabrics and the best ways to care for them, as well as how furniture placement could transform a home's flow. Every piece of knowledge helped me grow, and I quickly became one of the company's top service providers, even as a part-timer. After graduating from college, I joined my uncle's company full-time. Not only did I get to refine my skills, but I was also entrusted with training new hires, a challenge I was eager to embrace. By then, my collection of notes on cleaning techniques had grown to 6 meticulously organized notebooks. They were my personal treasure, a record of everything I'd learned and discovered. By my second year at the company, clients were specifically requesting me by name. I made it my mission to meet every request with excellence, ensuring each job left a lasting impression. One of those clients, Mrs. Ellen Monroe, became a significant figure in my life. I first met Ellen during my early days as a part-timer. In fact, I think hers was the very first house I worked in. To be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect from someone so young, but you did a remarkable job. I'm sorry for judging you based on your age and appearance. I suppose I still have a lot to learn. Her first request was for me to clean around the kitchen sink and the vent hood. I remember it clearly. I finished ahead of schedule and left everything spotless. That was when Ellen, looking slightly sheepish, admitted her initial doubts. Oh, no worries at all. I'm still learning myself, so your concerns were completely valid. But if you're satisfied with the results, that makes me truly happy. That first assignment had been so important to me. I poured everything I had into it. Hearing Ellen's praise felt like validation of my efforts. I was overjoyed. That encounter sparked something. Ellen began specifically requesting me for all her cleaning jobs. While cleaning remained her main request, once she learned about my background in home economics, she started seeking advice on meal planning and interior design as well. Thank you so much. I knew I was right to ask for you, Maya. Every time a job was done, she'd express her gratitude in a way that felt genuine and heartfelt. Ellen could have easily treated me like just another service worker. She was paying for it, after all, but her humility and warmth left a lasting impression on me. She made me want to give my best, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Over the years, Ellen and I developed a close relationship. She wasn't just a client anymore. She was a fixture in my life. By now, nearly every corner of Ellen's home had been touched by my work, meticulously cleaned and thoughtfully arranged. This time, she asked me to help organize her garden and trim the overgrown trees. Having taken gardening classes and earned a certification as a gardening advisor recently, I was thrilled to put my knowledge to use. Ellen watched me work with great interest before suddenly saying something unexpected. Maya, you truly can do it all, can't you? Whoever marries you will be the luckiest man alive. Forgive me for prying, but do you have a boyfriend? Honestly, I've been so absorbed in work that I haven't had time to think about dating. Well then, how about this? Would you consider meeting my nephew? He's a wonderful man. I'm so proud of him, but he doesn't seem to have much luck with women. My sister, his mother, is getting a bit worried. Her sudden proposal caught me off guard, but to cut to the chase, I agreed to meet her nephew, Andrew. I couldn't bear to decline and risk embarrassing Ellen. She had always been so kind to me. Plus, the restaurant she'd chosen for the meeting was a highly rated spot I'd always wanted to try. That didn't hurt. Caught between obligation and my love of good food, I found myself nodding before I even realized it. At the restaurant, the meal was every bit as exquisite as I'd hoped. I was beyond satisfied. Of course, I didn't let myself get too distracted by the food. I remained fully engaged in what I knew was the main event, my first encounter with Andrew. Maya, you're even more amazing than I imagined. Honestly, my heart and my appetite were competing for attention all night. I owe my aunt a big thank you for setting this up. She introduced me to someone as incredible as you. What a gift. Andrew said things that bordered on cheesy, but they didn't feel insincere. I think that's just who he is, genuine and earnest. Ellen had cleverly arranged this as a dinner for just the two of us. While that made it more casual, being alone with a man wasn't something I was used to, so I felt a little on edge. I hear you're amazing at cleaning, cooking, and everything else that makes a house a home. I think that's pretty incredible. You're going to make an amazing wife someday. I, on the other hand, am hopeless at that stuff. It's embarrassing, really. Oh, it's just part of my job, so it's not that special. As for being a good wife, I guess only time will tell. It was the kind of polite, surface-level conversation you expect during a first meeting. But now and then, a question slipped in that hinted at genuine curiosity about each other. Still, it wasn't awkward or unpleasant. It felt comfortable. I realized I wanted to know more about him, just as much as I wanted him to understand me. It felt strange, almost unsettling to find myself wanting this so much. There was something about Andrew that drew me in, a warmth, an authenticity I couldn't ignore. Maya, I'd really like to get to know you better. Would you consider going out with me again? Since I felt the same, I agreed, and just like that, our relationship began. Dating someone was a completely new experience for me. Every date with Andrew felt exciting and fresh, a mix of nervous energy and pure joy. Andrew was so kind and attentive, always knowing how to make me feel comfortable. It felt safe to let him take the lead. He treated me like a princess, and I felt both at ease and deeply valued in his presence. Almost a year into our relationship, he proposed. Maya, I want to build a future with you. Will you marry me and make me your soup every morning? The first part of his proposal was sweet, but the part about soup, what a corny line. Maybe I'll make soup for you once in a while. Even my reply came out a little strange, but it felt right in the moment. When Ellen heard the news of our engagement, she was overjoyed and showered us with her blessings. I'm so thrilled to have you as part of the family, Maya. Andrew's mom must be so relieved too. After losing her husband 5 years ago, her only concern has been Andrew's happiness. I'd known about Andrew's father passing away, and that he now lived with his mother, Linda. Marriage meant that Linda would become my mother-in-law. It was only natural that I'd have to meet her, but the thought filled me with nerves and a creeping sense of dread. When the day came, Linda greeted me with a radiant smile that immediately put me at ease. What a wonderful person you are, Maya. Andrew is so lucky to have you. Please, take good care of him, Maya. Linda's warmth made me want to scold the nervous wreck I'd been just hours earlier. I thought, this is someone I can build a good relationship with. She truly lived up to my expectations as Andrew's mother. While Linda had greeted me warmly, small incidents soon began to chip away at that initial sense of ease. As we moved forward I began to notice subtle changes in her demeanor. At first, they were minor things, easy to brush off, but over time they piled up, creating a nagging sense of unease. On our wedding day, Linda arrived in a stunning gown. The problem? It was white. I was taken aback, but I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. Unfortunately, that was just the beginning. So, what's the plan for where you'll live after you're married? This house is far too small, so living with me isn't an option. Besides, newlyweds should have their own space, don't you think? About that, Maya's house is actually really big. Her parents live elsewhere, and she's living there on her own. I figured it'd make sense for us to start our life together there. Andrew's apartment was cramped and expensive, so moving into my larger home with Andrew felt like the natural choice. And so we began our new life together. Just like during our courtship, every day after our wedding was filled with new experiences and little discoveries. Each discovery with Andrew brought a new realization. This was what happiness was supposed to feel like. I decided to quit my job and focus on supporting Andrew. I poured my skills into keeping the house spotless, cooking, and taking care of all the household chores. Maya, your cooking is amazing, and the house always looks great. Thank you. It didn't take long for me to discover that Andrew wasn't exactly tidy. He'd leave things out wherever he used them. He didn't seem to grasp the concept of putting trash in the garbage. He'd just leave it lying around without a second thought. Yet, he hated messes. And he'd always thank me when I cleaned up, making it hard to get mad. So I kept cleaning diligently. I told myself that everyone has flaws, and I try not to let it bother me too much. It was a happy marriage at first, but about 2 months in, something happened that began to change everything. Andrew was laid off from his job, leaving him unemployed. The company's finances were terrible. They were on the brink of bankruptcy. I stepped aside to help them survive. That was Andrew's version of events, but I wasn't so sure it was the whole truth. What are you going to do for work? What about our expenses? We have some savings, but we can't manage for long if you don't have an income. Don't worry, I'll find something else in no time. I couldn't help but doubt if Andrew was even seriously looking for a job. He spent most of his time lounging around the house, making no visible effort to find work. And yet he didn't contribute to the household, not even with small tasks. Instead, he barked orders at me constantly. When I finally couldn't take it anymore and pushed back, he responded like this. You're my wife. It's your job to take care of the house. I've got a lot on my plate, so stop bothering me with trivial stuff. I had no idea what he meant by busy. All he did was complain and avoid doing anything himself. I grew more and more exhausted, but thankfully about 2 months later, Andrew managed to find a new job. I felt a wave of relief, thinking we had avoided a major crisis in our marriage. What I didn't realize was that the real storm was just beginning to bare its fangs. One day, Andrew asked me to run an errand in the next town. I agreed, but something about the task didn't sit right with me. It didn't seem all that urgent or important. The errand took longer than expected, and I didn't return home until late afternoon. But when I arrived, I was shocked to see a moving truck parked outside the house. As I approached the front door, I saw the movers thanking Andrew and driving off. "Andrew, what's going on?" Before he could answer, Linda emerged from the house. "Oh, you're back now. Perfect timing. We just finished up." What are you doing here, Mom?" Before I could make sense of the situation, Linda's next words hit me like a freight train. "I've decided to move in and live here starting today. Andrew's my only son. It's only natural that I live with him." "Exactly. This house has plenty of room. It should be no problem that Mom moves in with us." I couldn't believe that Linda, even as my mother-in-law, would make such a major decision without consulting me. "Hold on a second. I didn't hear a word about this. Moving in while I wasn't even here? Surely I should have had a say in this. Are you seriously going to complain about my decision? I sent you out because I knew you'd make a fuss. It was all a calculated plan. And from that moment on, our lives changed drastically. I've already given up my old place. The lease was up, so the timing was perfect. You wouldn't throw me out when I have nowhere else to go, would you? You just need to do what I say, and from now on, you'll take care of Mom too." And just like that, my mother-in-law forced her way into our home. Whenever I tried to complain to Andrew, he'd dismiss me with a curt, "Just do what I say." My once peaceful life grew clouded, but this was only the beginning of the storm that was about to rage. Not only did Linda refuse to lift a finger around the house, but she also criticized everything I did. "What is this soup? It's so bland and I can't taste any seasoning. Don't you even know how to cook properly?" She didn't stop at complaining about my cooking. She even dictated when I should wake up. "How long are you planning to stay in bed? Andrew has to go to work, so you should be up at least 3 hours before him, getting everything ready." She was just as harsh when it came to cleaning. "Can't you even clean properly? There's trash on the floor. What are you looking at? Are your eyes just for show?" Her barbs came in endless, creative variations. If it were a talent, it might have been impressive, but being on the receiving end was unbearable. Her constant criticisms of my cleaning were particularly hard to stomach as a professional, especially since the messes she complained about were entirely her own doing. Linda would scatter mess everywhere and never clean up after herself. She also had a habit of hoarding things, keeping every little item she came across. It would have been understandable if these things were meaningful, but she clung to what was clearly garbage, and she didn't store them neatly. She just left them lying around, turning the house into a chaotic mess. I soon realized that Andrew had inherited his mother's sloppy tendencies, though she was much worse. The house filled with clutter at an alarming rate. At first, I dutifully cleaned up after Linda. But the endless cycle of clutter piling up wore me down. Eventually, I focused only on maintaining clear paths and keeping my own living space tidy. I gave up on the rest. This clearly offended Linda, who began bombarding me with even more complaints. "Are you kidding me?" Even Andrew started yelling at me. I wanted to scream back, "No, you're the one who must be joking." Tired of their nonsense, I walked out of the room. But I stopped just outside the door, curious to hear what they'd say when they thought I was gone. "She can't even clean properly. What a useless excuse for a wife. Just look at this place. It started to look like a dump. And who exactly turned it into a dump? She claims to be a professional cleaner, but she's clearly not up to the job. Aunt Ellen says she was amazing, but I guess she exaggerated." I didn't fully believe what my sister said, but she could at least put in the bare minimum. She's just a live-in maid anyway, so I suppose I can't expect too much. But still, she could try harder. To Linda, I wasn't her son's wife. I was free labor. "Mom, just let us slide. We're lucky to be living in such a big house after all. Honestly, if it weren't for these perks, I wouldn't have married her in the first place." Was I nothing more than someone to be used up and discarded? But since she quit her job, she's not even bringing in money. She seems to have some savings, but once that's gone, she'll be even more useless. "We'll cross that bridge when we get there," they said. "Let's just use her for as long as we can." It's just like they say, you can use anything if you know how. Hearing their true thoughts, I shook my head and let out a small sigh. I'd already felt my love for Andrew slipping away day by day. In that moment, whatever remained vanished completely. As for Linda, my feelings were a mix of anger and pity. Her behavior revealed a level of ugliness that was almost pitiful. From that day forward, I began planning my revenge on the two of them. By the time my preparations were complete, the perfect opportunity presented itself, courtesy of Linda and Andrew. Maya, we're having some relatives stay over, so make sure you clean up this dump and get 4 rooms ready for them. 4 rooms? That must mean quite a few guests. That's right. My sister and 3 other families will be visiting. We can't let them see this mess. It's embarrassing. Got it? Clean it all up. Linda invited a large group of guests as if this were her house, not mine. Of course, she had no intention of cleaning herself, but I decided to ask anyway. You were the ones who made this mess, weren't you? Are you saying you're not going to clean it up yourself? That's the daughter-in-law's job, isn't it? Stop whining and just get to it. You're really starting to annoy me. As expected, Linda doubled down with a hint of shame. Even someone as useless as you can manage to clean, right? Show us those professional cleaning skills you're always bragging about. We'll be off enjoying a spa for the next 2 days, so make sure it's done by the time we get back. And the cost of the trip is on you, by the way. Thanks. With straight faces, they not only dumped all the work on me, but also made me pay for their getaway. It was beyond absurd. Understood. They didn't realize the true meaning behind my cold, calm response. 2 days later, Ellen, who lived nearby, arrived on her own. Andrew and Linda fetched the other 3 families, bringing everyone to the house. The stage was set for the showdown just before noon that day, and then the moment arrived. Andrew and Linda froze in their tracks as they saw the bizarre scene at the house. A truck was parked on the street. Scaffolding surrounded the house, and protective sheets had been draped to contain debris. Their shock surely surpassed mine from the day Linda forced her way in with a moving truck. Let's get started, shall we? Our guests have arrived, so please proceed. At a signal from the foreman, an excavator parked by the front door delivered its first crushing blow to the building. What the hell are you doing? Are you tearing down the house? Stop this madness. Ignoring their screams, I delivered my response with ice-cold precision. I'm cleaning up everything, just like you said, including my relationship with the 2 of you. With that, I thrust the completed divorce paper into Andrew's hands. His face turned ashen as he stared at the document, and then he erupted in panic. You can't just do this on your own. Tearing down the house? Divorce? This is insane! Before I could respond, Ellen's furious voice rang out from behind them. Linda, Andrew, I'm absolutely appalled by how terrible you 2 are. Poor Maya. I introduced her to you, and look what you've done. Made her life miserable. Linda, Andrew, both of you deserve to be left with nothing. That fateful day, after learning their true feelings, I reached out to everyone involved, explaining the situation and my decision. This included Ellen, of course, as well as my parents and my uncle. Why my uncle? Because this house wasn't actually mine, it was his. He owned the house and had planned to sell it soon, but in the meantime he had let me live here. Now that I was ending my life with Andrew, I no longer needed it. When Linda demanded I clean up, I decided to take her request literally and clear the house out entirely. When I told my uncle, he agreed to move the timeline up and approved the demolition. It was a last-minute request, but the team handling the demolition was from my uncle's company. Though his company primarily offered housekeeping services, my uncle had expanded into demolition after realizing how often it went hand in hand with extreme cleanups. Wait, this house wasn't ours? Andrew's voice trembled with disbelief. That's why it's so easy to tear down. As Andrew stood there in stunned silence, my uncle stepped forward. Andrew, your work ethic has been unacceptable. I only tolerated it because you were Maya's husband, but now that's no longer the case. Since you're still within your probationary period, I can terminate you without hesitation. Good timing, wouldn't you say? What? Fired? You're taking away my job and my home? What am I supposed to do? Andrew sobbed and shouted, while Linda floundered, unable to grasp what was happening. They looked utterly pathetic. Your belongings are packed and in a storage unit. I used my professional cleaning skills to organize everything. Though honestly, I couldn't tell what was trash and what wasn't, so some odd things might have made it in there. After that, my divorce from Andrew was finalized, and I was finally free. I also filed for damages against both of them for their treatment of me. Andrew, now unemployed, ended up sharing a tiny, dilapidated apartment with Linda. 1 room, no bath, and a shared toilet. Even then, it seemed unlikely they'd be able to cover the rent for long. Linda was disowned by Ellen, who cut off all forms of support. The rest of the family, disgusted by her behavior, distanced themselves as well. Having squandered her late husband's inheritance, Linda had no choice but to take on part-time work. But her years of idleness left her lacking even basic workplace etiquette, and she quickly became unemployable. No matter where she worked, she was promptly fired. Andrew, too, couldn't find another job. Their future was bleak, but none of it concerned me anymore. As for me, I returned to work at my uncle's company and threw myself into it with renewed passion. But truth be told, I didn't need to work to support myself. The notebooks I'd kept over the years, filled with cleaning tips and techniques, had become the basis for a best-selling series of guides. 3 volumes had already been published. The royalties alone were enough to live on comfortably. Looking back, I was relieved that I'd never shared this with Andrew or Linda. Had they known, they would have exploited me for every cent. Now, work wasn't about the money. It was about purpose and fulfillment. And maybe, just maybe, this was the ultimate luxury, working for the joy of it. Have you ever heard the story of the toilet god? They say that willingly cleaning something as unpleasant as a toilet cleanses not just the space, but your spirit too. It purifies your heart, attracts good fortune, and raises your overall luck. Making others happy while improving yourself? That's truly wonderful, isn't it? My aunt's words echoed in my mind. When you give to others, it all comes back to you eventually. Through my experiences, I learned what it truly meant to be strong. It meant valuing yourself enough to rise again, no matter how much you'd been hurt or how deeply you'd suffered. Today, I'm happier than I ever dared to dream back then, because this happiness is something I built for myself. The house may be gone, but my heart is full. And now I understand. That's what truly matters.